Jamal, you are from Jerusalem, occupied Palestine. Can you tell us how is the situation in Palestine today? And also, can you talk a little bit about the deal of the century that President Donald Trump is suggesting as a solution for the question of Palestine?
Yeah, it's very connected together. When you talk about the century deal, the deal of the century, it's connected to the political situation and the situation on the ground in Palestine. Since 2018, when Donald Trump came to the power, it was clearly that the imperialism adopting the Zionist colonial project doesn't mean that they were not adopting it before, but this time they're adopting clearly to stand up in the forefront of liquidating Palestine issue, which is the Zionist project has been working on since a century almost on this particular issue. So they started immediately with Jerusalem. Jerusalem is one of the main core issues in the Palestinian struggle. He decided, like Balfour, around 100 years ago, when he decided to give a Jews homeland in Palestine, Trump came and decided that Jerusalem is for Jews, and the capital for Israel. Denying the right of the Palestinians in the city, either the one in the East Jerusalem, which is 350,000 Palestinians living there, or from the west part of Jerusalem, where 70,000 Palestinians in Jerusalem has been expelled and uprooted from the city, and they are now living as refugees, where 38 villages from Jerusalem and around Jerusalem that has been totally destroyed and leveled to the ground. This was a huge issue. When you decide that this is this is a capital for Israel, you just destroy the international law concerning this, the whole recognition of the international law. The American governments all before Trump, none of them has been there to do such a thing because they know the consequences. This is not because they are good, but they know the consequences, how it's going to be on different levels, on the situation on the ground as well as on the international law system. That they are the one who's controlling in a way or another it. The second immediately started is the targeting the right of return. Right of return is the skeleton of Palestine issue. Without the right of return, there is no solution for the Palestinian issue. Simply because you are talking about 70% of the Palestinians are refugees. Either those who's living in the West Bank, in the refugee camps, in Gaza, in Jerusalem, or in the diaspora, in the Arab countries around, or inside Israel even. Inside Israel, there are around 300,000 Palestinian refugees who are holding Israeli citizenship. And they have been expelled from their villages, and their villages has been destroyed. And some of their villages still there. They didn't destroy, but they didn't allow them to go back until now to these villages. So Trump came in a way to say there is no right of return. He targeted the UNRWA. UNRWA is the organization has been started and established with the Palestinian refugees catastrophe. So it's the symbolic international organization for the rights of the Palestinian refugees. And when you know that also that the United Nations has been stress and issue on the right of the Palestinians to go back to their homelands that has been destroyed in a resolution number 194. So what does that mean when he targeted the UNRWA? By cutting the money that they are donating and supporting this organization. The consequences now is many of the employees of the UNRWA has been left without jobs, especially the teachers who's running the school. This is one of the most important sector. So now this year, the coming season or semester of the schools, we don't know if it's going to be happening or not. There's a serious problem now within the refugee camps, other than all the other problems that's happening. Then the colonial project, the colonies that Israel were building in the West Bank, since 1967 up to now. And we know that, like, when we talk about Israel, we talk about Zionism. Zionism is a settler colonial project. Since the beginning of last century, since the Balfour Declaration, this settler colonial project started, where they're bringing the waves of immigrants, Jewish immigrants from Europe. They settle them on the Palestinian farmers' lands, protecting them, training them in the British military. And this rule has been continued after the Nakba, 1948, where after Israel established. So they became the one who's like building the settlements and taking and confiscating the Palestinian lands. So the targeting of the Palestinians as indigenous people who's like owning the land didn't ended in 1948 with the massive expulsion that's happened. In 48, like 85% of the Palestinian population has been uprooted and pushed out of their homeland. The vast majority of their villages has been leveled to the ground. 530 villages and cities has been leveled to the ground, not to allow them to come back to Palestine. So the colonial project in the West Bank, which is it was accelerated in the last few years, accelerated strongly, especially in Jerusalem, where they are announcing hundreds of thousands, 300,000 housing units has been announced at the beginning of this year to be built in Jerusalem. After another stage of settlements called Plan 2020, which they built 58,000 housing units in Jerusalem. And now there's 300,000 coming. What does that mean when you talk about settlements and colonies to be built? Every unit of settlement is built on the expense of Palestinian family. And every settlement is built on expense of Palestinian village. So this is like kind of like a strategic way to push the people out, take over their land. And if we look at the statistics, in 1997, East Jerusalem was 100% controlled by the Palestinians. Now, we are not controlling more than 13% of Jerusalem. And the list has been eaten and taken step by step by the colonies and by the expansion of the settlements and the highways and the roads that they are building there. So here it's come the reaction. Like when we talk about the Great March from Gaza that started, it started as a strong reaction on this plan, on Trump's plans. So when the people start marching like with masses to the Gaza prison border, and Israel start killing them with tens of people in every demonstration, sniping them and shooting the civilians, this is because the people goes out loudly and strongly to say that to Israel and to Trump and to the rest of the world, no, the right of return is not going to be liquidated. We are still insist on our right to go back to our homelands and the lands that we have been expelled from. We waited 70 years and doesn't mean that we forgot, and it's not will be easier for you now to liquidate this. We are insist on our right and we are ready to sacrifice ourselves for that. So the message was clear from the Palestinians in Gaza. And this has been also the reaction in the West Bank, where demonstrations has been in most of the Palestinian cities and villages on the checkpoints, the confrontational areas with the Israeli military. Jerusalem was under siege. Jerusalem is they turned Jerusalem into like a military area, where it has been controlled very sophisticatedly, with sets of cameras, surveillance sets around the city, in the streets, in the corners, in every front of every shop, in every street, beside also the intelligence, beside the heavy presence of the Israeli police and the military in the city. They are so scared from the Palestinians in Jerusalem to revolute again, because all was these plans, the one who shake it usually the people. And we were witnessing in 2015 the revolution that started from Jerusalem. Then the gates in 2017 was in Jerusalem. So Jerusalem became the source of the revolutions because of the pressures, because the concentration of the Israeli military power on the city and targeting the people. And here I would just mention that Jerusalem now is encircled and suffocated by 181 kilometers of walls 9 meter wall. And the wall, how it has been set up in Jerusalem, it has been going deep into Jerusalem, then taking out to take out Palestinian communities, then go deep into the West Bank to annex colonies. So it's going in and out like this. By this, they take out from the West Bank 10%. 10% of the West Bank became Jerusalem. That's what they called it, Greater Jewish Jerusalem. What they did by this, they get out of Jerusalem 22 Palestinian villages and Shafat refugee camps. In total, about 225,000 Palestinians has been disconnected totally from their land. Massive ethnic cleansing, silent ethnic cleansing, nobody talk about. They didn't load the people in trucks and throw them away. They rather just like build this wall that will isolate these people. They will never be able to be in part of the city. On the other side, they bring to the city 200,000 settlers with 4 major blocks of settlements. So they get in 200,000 settlers, they get out 225,000 Palestinians. This is what they called it, engineering the demography. It's all about that. How they Judaize the city by making the Jews like majority inside the city. So the way is to push the Palestinians out and to bring more Jews to the city. That's other than Judaizing the streets, changing its names, the neighborhoods, the everything in the city, every identity of the city that says that this is Palestinian, Christian, Muslim, Arab identity, they targeted. And the most targeted in the heart of this is the holy places. The attacks in the mosques that's happening every day. This is the reason for that. They want the last part that still the sovereignty of the people on it, they want to take it. They take this and they want Jewish fanatic settlers to be getting inside there, divide it like Hebrew mosque. And this is create clashes, ongoing clashes with the settlers, with the military, lots of arrested the people, deportation from the city. So the situation within Jerusalem is very, very tense. And it's explosively, could be any minute, like an exploding. The Gaza continue their move. Every Friday you have this like masses going there. There's initiatives, there's like a kind of like new ways of resistance that we started seeing, like the kites that they are throwing to inside outside the borders of Gaza, which is burning fields there. So these people became creative how they will continue giving and sending out the message. And this is very interesting, I think, and important thing to understand from what the people in Gaza doing. The people of Gaza reminding the world that the first intifada started from Gaza. So Gaza is a big container of like any popular power, people's power. So in spite of the whole military control, the seam zones like you can't come close sometimes 300 meters from this wall. So it's heavily militarized. And it's happened, like anybody passes through this area, they will be shot immediately and sniped. So when the people get into the masses there, they are telling them, you need to change the whole stereotyping about Gaza that you have been building in your minds. Like that all the things is going out from Gaza is like any missiles. So here we are telling you that like we are ready as a people of Gaza to go all of us towards the borders to give a message that we are not going to accept to continue living in such a horrible situation that inhuman, dehumanizing the people and just like turning the people of Gaza like in a big oven, like people have been dying every day. There is no electricity, no hospitals, contaminated water. So it's a genocide, slow genocide what's going in Gaza. So this is the recipe of the revolution. The Gazan people is not going to stop. That's why they are getting crazy now, how they can reduce the human crisis in Gaza. As if Gazans has been revoluting to have food or for better economical situation. The message of Gaza from the beginning was clear. It is a great march of return. It is stressing on the Palestinian rights that you are trying, Trump and Netanyahu and all those like in the imperialist governments and powers and the world to dump it. So this is from one side of Gaza. The West Bank, like now, it's many like fights is open. for example, and on the forefront of this is the ethnic cleansing plan that started in the Area C. And this is very, very dangerous. And they wanted to do it like in a kind of an silent way. So they targeted this Khan al-Ahmar Bedouin community. They want to evacuate them. Of course, that area is a very sensitive area. It is in the slopes of Jerusalem. It's in the wilderness of Jerusalem. The only place that left for East Jerusalem open toward the east. Other than them, from the other sides, all has been blocked by settlements. And Palestinian villages in Jerusalem and neighborhoods became like an isolations in the middle of the highways and the middle of the settlements. So this is the only place that even Jerusalem can breathe, like and can expand. So they came with this plan to block it totally, with a plan of 6,500 housing units to be built for the settlements there, to make it like a kind of a resort, they called it, like for hiking, for I don't know what, hotels to be built there. In a way, the idea is to block this all empty area from Jerusalem to the block of Ma'ali Adumim, 14 kilometers to the east, and to make it pure from Palestinians. There is 22 Palestinian communities, Bedouin communities there. They start targeting them for ethnic cleansing. They want to clean it from the Arabs. So that's now stopped there, where the whole mobilization and the whole demonstrations and the whole sittings, like people sleeping with hundreds of numbers in the community there, not to allow the ethnic cleansing to happen, and this is going on. If they succeed, this is part of a bigger plan. 46 Bedouin communities in the areas from Bethlehem to Ramallah in the wilderness. They want also to clean it totally. Another 27 locations in the south of Hebron, another 19 locations in the north of the West Bank. It means when we talk about these areas, we are talking about 62% of the West Bank that they are targeting for ethnic cleansing and cleaning it from the Palestinians to annex it. What's in this area, in the 62%? All the Palestinian resources, the water, the agricultural land, the grazing areas, where the animal and livestock is there, that providing the whole West Bank with the meat and the milk and all these issues, the vegetables, the fruits, everything. And if they take this and annex it like they are planning, how it will look, the whole map of the West Bank. If this area has been isolated, what's left in the mountains, the villages and the cities encircled by walls, fragmented, separated from each other's. So we will be an island in our land, reservations. It is a model of the Native Americans and Native Canadians, how they have been locked at the end in the reservations. That's what they want, devastated. So these communities, the Palestinian communities, will be, according to their plans, devastated without any resources, depending on external donations. And there is no place left or no way after all these plans that you can talk about Palestinian state. This has been totally getting rid of. So they know that the Palestinians will not accept this. So what they are doing, they are, since 3 years, is not recently, every day, they raided the Palestinian villages, arrested approximately between 10 to 25 people every night. All this invasions is confronted by the people. Clashes will continue in the places like on the night. So many people injured, many people has been killed in these invasions. The demolition of the houses, the Palestinian houses that's going on, either in Jerusalem or the West Bank. The checkpoints, military checkpoints that humiliated the people on there. Ongoing of confiscation the land of the villages. In a way, there is an open war that on the Palestinian people's daily life in the West Bank. So this is the consequences of the century deal, a deal of the century of Trump. It's going on since it's not before the century of the deal. What brings the century of the deal on this? And that was very scary, because when they start talking about this deal, they were talking about the Palestinian state in Gaza. But how this is going to be established in Gaza? Gaza is already a big refugee camp. So the idea is to take double the size of Gaza from Egypt, from Sinai, expand Gaza there. And giving the Egyptians likewise the place from the desert of Palestine, and creating a kind of a tunnel, open a tunnel from under there to link to Jordan and Saudi Arabia, between Egypt and Saudi Arabia and Jordan. The Palestinian reservations that's created will have like a kind of municipal controlling link to the state in Gaza. But how they are going to convince the Palestinians to move to the Sinai? The scenario before the march of greater march, and for this massive civilians go to the borders, and they were already planning to it and pave the way to that, is to have another war in Gaza. But this war will be not like any other war. They will bomb Gaza like hell, and Egypt will open the borders, so the people will flee to Egypt, to Sinai. That was a scenario that has been put in. The thing that has been stopped this is the people. When they start marches and turn over all the things, so they just like cut off the road of this plan, which could be until now. They could do it. Doesn't mean that it has been vanished. It can be, maybe it has been postponed. They are trying now to provoke Gaza all the time with attacks, with assassinations, with killing of people, like dragging Gaza to respond, to have like, to get into, to justify getting into this war. So the danger is still over there. Then here it comes like the Palestinian Authority and PLO. When you signed Oslo 25 years ago, Arafat and the Palestinian Authority, PLO, were promised in a Palestinian state in 1999. If I want to describe just like a little bit, what does that mean? Like to get to this point, what we have been sacrificed as a Palestinians. We drop off our guns. We eliminate and erase in our constitutions the armed struggle. We stop the biggest intifada. And all this war for what? For having peace and having a Palestinian state. Israel used this immediately to continue their colonizing on the Palestinian areas, talking to the Palestinians and swallowing the land. And by the way, when you talk about E1 plan, this is one of the most dangerous plans that will cut off the West Bank totally in that area. It is the plan of Yitzhak Rabin, the one who signed Oslo Agreement with Arafat in 1994, a year after they signed the agreement. And this is in the heart of the West Bank. So that shows like what do they understand peace looks like. For them is controlling, take the Palestinians, slaving the Palestinians, make them surrender, and they will do whatever they want in the Palestinian land. So in this context, like now, I think the Palestinian leadership has been put in back to the wall. All this plan that you come and build the Palestinian Authority was for a Palestinian state. Now Israel and the United States, who has been over like super holding all this, what so-called negotiations in the last 25 years, telling you exactly you don't have a state. Jerusalem is not for you. All your rights have to be dumped. So here now, like the very difficult situation that has the Palestinian Authority and the PLO has been put in. The people is there. There's a movement that's going on within the people, like discussions, debates on the ground, like what are we going to do, like clearly that the Palestinian Authority is paralyzed. The Palestinian party is paralyzed. None of them is like able to put a solution to the Palestinian people. So now the whole debates that's going on the ground into reforming the Palestinian national movement and get back to as a response to the one democratic state solution. And this is like I can see it by the end of the year. Movements will declare this clearly, whether the Palestinian Authority like it or the parties like it or don't like it. This will be the willing of the people at the end. Just lately, the last few days, like the last week, Israel approved the national Jewish law. It came like to summarize and to wrap up the whole issue of the whole what's going on, from the deal of the century to all the steps that has been taken on the ground to tell the world clearly that this is the land of Israel, this is the land of the Jews. The Jews are the only people who have the right to self-determination in their land. There is nobody here, no Palestinians, no other people in the land have any rights. And they talk about the Jewish land, land of Israel, in the land of Israel. What does that mean, land of Israel? Where is land of Israel? Is it 48? Is it 67? If you go to different narrative of the Jewish parties and the government and the Zionists in general, for them, the West Bank, which is not mentioned in any way, it is part of Israel land. In much more extreme narratives, the Jewish land are from the Nile to Euphrates. So the danger, it's not became just on the Palestinians, but in the whole region. So they are messing up the whole situation with this, and they clearly say that we are apartheid state. Doesn't mean that they were not apartheid before. Since 1948, 49, the first law that issued after Israel established the right of the return. Right of return for the Jews anywhere in the world to Palestine, and deny the right of return for the people that they expelled 2 weeks ago and they destroyed their villages. So it's built on racism. Now the Knesset or the parliament, the Israeli parliament, is framing all these racist laws. By the way, it's just like the last year, 50 Israeli racist laws has been issued by the Knesset. Right? So they are framing the whole racist law to form the new character of Israel as an Israeli and as an apartheid state. So this is very important understanding for the struggle of the Palestinians and for the solidarity as well with Palestine, because here you need a solution. What are you going to do as the Palestinians? Would you accept this? Would you accept the ghettos and the slavery system that they are talking about? They will accept that, he will deny you, and maybe tomorrow will expel you out from your homeland. So here the question that need to be answered from the Palestinian movements and from the Palestinian people everywhere, and from the international community as well. Whether you accept a colonial apartheid state now with this character today in the world, and would you accept what happened to the Palestinians? Where is the international law that you are talking about? Where is the human rights? Where the United Nations resolutions have been gone? So it's the issue is like became like any widely put so many questions on where are you going, how to deal with this particular issue.